Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season as the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach, but now with a new quarterback under center, will that change, or will the Pittsburgh Steelers have another winning season and have a chance to make the playoffs? Tune in to find out. What is going on, everyone? It is Connor, the co-host with the most, back with another Clutch Crew Sports 2022 NFL team preview, and I am very excited for this one for obvious reasons. If you're a fan of the show, you know I'm a huge Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and it's finally time for our Pittsburgh Steelers preview. Got my Steelers hat on here. We are down to the final two team previews. We have this one on the Steelers that will be coming out on Sunday, and then our final team preview that Zach will be releasing on the Cleveland Browns will be coming out on Wednesday. And after that, we will have covered all 32 teams. But I'm super excited for this one, like I said, for obvious reasons. The Steelers are definitely one of the most interesting teams in the league this year, so there's definitely a lot to talk about. So let's get right into it. And the big news, of course, with the Steelers is, Ben Roethlisberger retired after last year. It's been a long time coming, of course, for him to retire. A lot of people thought it was going to happen a couple of seasons ago. The Steelers even drafted Mason Rudolph because they thought he was going to do it quite a few seasons ago, but he finally did it. And now, of course, comes the quarterback battle. Three contenders in the quarterback battle. There is, of course, Mason Rudolph, who's been on the roster for a while now. They drafted him back in the third round. Kenny Pickett, their first-round draft choice selection this year. And, of course, Mitchell Trubisky, who they brought in through free agency. Now, I am recording this on Thursday, September 1st at night. This video will be coming out on Sunday, September 4th. And as of right now, no official announcement has been made as to who the quarterback is. I'm assuming that's probably not going to change by the time we get to Sunday when this video comes out. I'm assuming it's probably not going to get announced until Thursday or Friday, like leading up to Sunday when the Steelers have their first game against the Bengals. But I could be wrong. But as of right now, it's definitely a two-horse race. There were some rumors early in the season that Mason Rudolph could have a shot at it, but I think that was completely unrealistic and unfounded because there's no way he was going to step in. He's had plenty of chances to compete for the starting job, and he's just kind of proven he's not the guy. So it's definitely down to Pickett and Trubisky. Pickett had a great preseason, but I kind of try not to look at preseason too much just because, you're playing against backups half the time. Especially Pickett was playing against backups. He didn't even really get in there against the starters for the most part. And even when you're against starters, they may not be going at 100% because they don't want to get injured. Trubisky also had a pretty good preseason. And, I know it's kind of split when it comes to Steelers fans. Some want Pickett, some want Trubisky. Personally, I kind of want it to be Kenny Pickett because I'm not a big believer in Mitchell Trubisky. He kind of reminds me of like a slightly better version of Sam Darnold. With Sam Darnold, the whole story was, oh, he's only bad. He's only doing bad because he's with the Jets, and the Jets are a terrible organization. And it's, the same with Mitchell Trubisky. Oh, he was only like doing bad and seen in a bad light because he was playing for the Bears, and the Bears were a dumpster fire with Matt Nagy. But then we saw what happened with Darnold, and he's still bad in Carolina. And I think the similar thing is going to happen with Trubisky. I don't think we're going to see much difference out of him here in Pittsburgh, even though he's got better coaching and better weapons. I just don't see much changing. So I kind of do want it to be Pickett, but in my opinion, it's going to be Trubisky. I don't see any reason why it's not going to be Trubisky. I think Tomlin's just kind of holding back, trying to get the drama going. But it's going to be Mitchell Trubisky. I'll say it right now. It's going to be him. How long he has the job is obviously a question. It could be, depending on how the Steelers are doing, we could see him out of a job by week 4, week 5, depending on what happens. But I mean, if he's playing well, then by all means, I would keep him in. You don't want to take out a quarterback who's winning, especially since Pickett, he wasn't like a top 5 quarterback. He was picked at number 20, so he's not someone that you necessarily expect to come in and start right away. But, the future is good for Pittsburgh. I'm excited for Pickett, when he finally gets in, but Trubisky's going to be the guy to start, and hey, if he performs well, I'll eat my words about him. But, he's going to be the starter in my mind. I think they're just delaying it for drama purposes. But whoever is going to be the quarterback, they obviously have a lot of weapons to work with. Najee Harris is going to be entering his second year at running back. He was fourth in the league in rushing last year. His yards per carry was not great. He just had a lot of carries, but that should improve this year. And a plethora of receiving weapons. Deontay Johnson recently got an extension. He had a much better season last year. He cut down on the drops. Chase Claypool is, he's entering his third year. Definitely looking to see some improvement out of him. He's a big target. He's kind of like a deep threat jump ball receiver. So definitely looking for some improvement out of him. George Pickens has looked great in preseason. Again, I try not to put too much in preseason, but George Pickens, I'm really excited for this guy. The Steelers know how to find receivers in the draft, and I think Pickens is definitely going to be a steal in the draft. I wasn't super thrilled when we took him, but I wasn't super thrilled when we took Deontay Johnson either, but look what he's turned out to be. So the Steelers just have a knack for finding receiving talent, and Pat Freiermuth as well, the second-year tight end, is coming into his second year, and he's looking to make a big improvement. So moving on to the next big storyline for the Steelers, obviously can't talk about the Steelers without talking about the offensive line. That was the big problem last year, and it's still the big glaring problem on this team this year. I mean, this is a team that, for all intents and purposes, if the O-line performs well, I see this team as a quarterback away, because they have a lot of weapons. The defense is going to be one of the best in the league. But, just got to get the quarterback and got to get the offensive line. They did make some changes during the offseason. They brought in Mason Cole and James Daniels to the offensive line. Daniels is going to be playing at the right guard position. Mason Cole is going to be replacing Kendrick Green at center, which I think was a good move because Green is more of a guard. He's not really a center, and they did put him at center last year, and he didn't perform super well. Unfortunately for the Steelers, in my mind, neither of these guys were, Pro Bowl great talents or anything, but, they're upgrades over what we had. But the real problem for the Steelers, in my mind, is the tackle position. Dan Moore and Chukwuma Okorafor are really not that great. And they're, the most important offensive line, especially the left tackle position is the most important offensive line position. And Dan Moore, I mean, unless he just takes some sort of massive leap here going into year two, which he hasn't looked great in the preseason, mind you, which, again, it's going against backups a good amount of the time. So when you're not looking good in the preseason, that's not good. And, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Steelers at some point, next season end up drafting a tackle or, trying to trade for one or pick up someone in free agency because he's not looked good at all. Okorafor hasn't looked much better. It's just, and the problem is it's going to be up to them. I like the interior of our offensive line. I think the run game should be able to do better this year, but, pass protection is going to really be key this year. I know, at least the good news is that we don't have Roethlisberger back there anymore, so Trubisky and Pickett are much more mobile than Roethlisberger ever was, so, at least they can find ways to get out of trouble, but it's going to be really key for the line to do better, and I'm not feeling super optimistic about it. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that they really start to come into their own, but the tackle position is definitely a huge weakness, and it could really set this team back. In my opinion, I've been kind of really disappointed with the lack of offensive linemen that have been drafted for us in the past couple of seasons. I know it was essential for us to get a running back. I love Najee Harris, and it was essential for us to get a quarterback this year, so I have no problem with those picks. And while I do like Pat Freiermuth and I like George Pickens, it's one of those things that I really wish we would have taken more offensive linemen or at least been more aggressive in getting offensive linemen in free agency because, we had some cap room during free agency and, we went out and got Trubisky, but we didn't really make any other big free agency moves, other than this wasn't a free agency move, but we traded for Miles Jack, but and we signed Levi Wallace, but there wasn't any, real big splash that we made. Granted, there weren't that many, good, younger, big-name tackles that were available. Most of the offensive linemen that were available around the offseason were centers and guards, which wasn't really what we needed, per se. But I definitely want to see us make some moves and, draft a tackle next year or try and, trade for a tackle or something to improve the O-line, because that's the most important thing. You could have the best quarterback, the best running back, the best receivers, but if you don't have an offensive line, you're screwed. So now looking ahead, I always like to have kind of one category talking about the future, and mine here is going to be about Devin Bush and Chase Claypool. I'll start with Claypool because he's the lesser of the two when it comes to this, but definitely I just want to see some improvement from Claypool. Like, I think Claypool was fine for the future, but I definitely need to see some improvement. He definitely took a step backward last year, kind of had a sophomore slump. He was great in his rookie year. He had a lot of touchdowns. He was, used as like a gadget type player. But for me, he definitely has an opportunity this year to be better just because, Trubisky and Pickett are upgrades over Roethlisberger, and they're not going to be running the same simple short pass plays that they were running all of the past couple of seasons because Roethlisberger couldn't throw it more than 15 to 20 yards. So the playbook is definitely going to be opened up a lot this year. So I'm hoping to see some improvement out of Claypool, and I think he should be fine. But the real question here is going to be with Devin Bush. The Steelers traded up to number 10 to take him back in 2017. It was 2017 or 2018. I think it was 2018 actually. We moved up a lot of spots to take him. That middle linebacker spot was a huge need for us after Ryan Shazier went down, and Devin Bush just really has not shown that he is worthy of that number 10 selection. I was excited for him when we drafted him. I liked him, but he really hasn't done anything. The Steelers, the weakness of our defense has definitely been the run defense, and Devin Bush is a huge part of that. The linebackers are huge when it comes to or to run defense. We have a great defensive line like Cameron Hayward, T.J. Watt, Alex Highsmith. We can get after the quarterback and get sacks. I mean, we've led the league in sacks the past 5 years. But when it comes to the linebacking position, that's definitely a weak point of this team. And, like I said, we went out and traded for Miles Jack, so I was really excited about that. I think he's going to bolster our run defense, but Devin Bush really needs to step up. He's going into a point now where this is his 4th year in the league, so the Steelers have to make the choice whether to pick up his 5th-year option or not. And if I'm the Steelers, honestly, I'm not picking it up. Unless he just kind of shows some monumental improvement this year, I'm not picking it up, and I'm going to be moving on from him because, like I said, we gave up quite a bit to move up to get him, and it's unfortunately been a bit of a failed experiment. I'm not sure what kind of linebackers are going to be available in free agency next year. Roquan Smith could potentially be available. So if I'm the Steelers, I'd say don't pick up his 5th-year option, let him go, and try and get someone in free agency or in the draft to replace him because he's unfortunately been a failure. And it's been, a lot of Steelers fans have wanted him to go already. I'm willing to give him one more chance, but this is definitely his last chance for me if I'm, Mike Tomlin and the defensive coordinator. So, not looking good for Devin Bush, but closing out the video here, let's look at their schedule. Of course, the Steelers do play in the AFC North, which is a bit of a stacked division. The Ravens and Bengals are both, trying to contend for the AFC Championship. The Browns, the Steelers do play them once without Deshaun Watson. They will be playing them at the end of the season with Deshaun Watson, so that'll definitely be interesting. They do draw the AFC East, and they play all of them early in the season, so that's going to be a little interesting. The Patriots have, in the past, been kind of nemesis of the Steelers, but, this isn't Tom Brady Patriots anymore, so the Steelers should hopefully be able to get a win there. But the Bills and Dolphins are, of course, both going to be tough. I'm actually going to the Week 5 game against Buffalo. I'll be going up to Buffalo for that one, so, don't let me down, guys. I mean, my dad will be unhappy if we win that, but, I'll be happy. So, on the flip side of things, in the NFC, they draw the NFC South, so another division where there's like 2 winnable games and 2 tougher games. The Panthers and Falcons are both kind of in rebuild mode, so definitely should be more winnable games there. But the Bucs and the Saints are definitely tougher opponents, so it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of uncertainty with this team for sure. This is a team that it's hard to predict what they're going to do. They could, if everything comes together and like Trubisky or Pickett starts playing really well, this team, in my mind, could easily reel off 10, 11 wins and, possibly either get a wild card spot or contend for the division, or this could be a team that I could see only winning 5 to 6 games and coming back down to earth and, possibly entering some sort of a rebuild or, something like that. Or they could just finish middle of the pack. Their over-under is set at 7.5 this year. Last year they were set at 8.5. They finished 9-7-1. They were the final wild card in the AFC. Got destroyed by the Chiefs in the wild card round, which everyone saw coming. I'm going to be optimistic here and say they go over. It's not going to be by much. I say they probably get I'd say they probably get back to that 9-win mark. I say they go 9-8. You know, Tomlin gets another winning season. I don't know if that's going to be enough to get a wild card, just because the AFC is so stacked. You know, just because like there's winnable games on the schedule against like the Jets and the Browns in Week 3 and the Panthers and Falcons, but you know, and I could see them stealing a game over the Ravens and Bengals, but they're going to lose at least one game to both of those teams. They're going to lose to the Bills and the Bucks. You know, there's tough games and there's easy games, just like with every schedule. But I say they get 9 wins. They go 9-8. I'm gonna err on the side that they miss the playoffs, just because, like I said, of how stacked the AFC is. I don't think 9 wins is going to cut it. I think they're going to have to get at least 10 wins if they want to do it. But you know, we'll see how this season comes out. Hopefully, they do better than I anticipate, but I'm kind of tampering my expectations again for them this year. I wasn't huge on them last year, and I'm not huge on them this year too. It's just too many questions at quarterback and the offensive line, despite having a top 5 defense and good skill position weapons. But thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you let me know down in the comments below whether you agree, disagree with my take on the Steelers. You know, like I said, this is our second to last preview. We only have one more preview coming out after this, and that will be Zach coming out with the Cleveland Browns, which we've been waiting on to do for obvious reasons. We were waiting to see what happens with Deshaun Watson, but now we know the answer, so Zach will be coming out with that on Wednesday. We also are each going to be making a special video. You know, every year for the past couple of seasons, we run a fantasy football league for our podcast with some friends and fans of our podcast, and Zach and Eric and I are each going to be doing our own separate videos on our draft, which is going to be happening on Saturday, September 3rd. So make sure you stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for Zach's preview on the Browns. And until then, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, hit the like button if you enjoyed what you saw. And until then, I will see you guys next time.